Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Feminine Legacy Podcast. I'm your host, Jackie Ma, and this is a spiritual platform for soulful leaders to come together, share their hearts and voices, and explore all facets of life with a commitment to heal, grow, impart wisdom, and create impact for future generations. For us, legacy is all about the past, coming into the present, and evolving into the future. So we are gathering to bring that medicine. So without further ado, I would love to introduce our beloved guest today, Chrissy Marie. I'm going to read a little bit about her. She's fancy. Chrissy Marie is a trauma-informed embodiment practitioner, an inner child liberator, advanced spiral practitioner, a breathwork facilitator, and a lover of crude humor. And that is how I have come to love her. More importantly, she's weird. She comes alive helping heart-centered high achievers grow up their inner people pleaser and prosper in their purpose by working to make playfulness and simplicity a priority. Awesome sauce.
May I also add, she is like an expert on run-on sentences.
She's boss.
Not concise.
It's perfect. She helps her clients draw in their authentic selves because she is doing her thing. So all of that to say, I'd love to get in and have conversation with her now so you can really experience her. Welcome, darling.
Thank you. Very excited.
I'm very excited you're here. So let's get into it. I'm also excited to learn more about you. So let's let the weave begin. So wait. So
ready to weave.
We are ready to weave. So Mama, tell me a little bit about where you are now. Where are you physically?
Yeah. That's changed.
Yeah.
So physically, I am in Southern Alabama until the winter, till December in the US, winter in the US. I'll be going back up to Rhode Island, which is my home state, which is where I've lived all my life. Okay. My partner is in the military. He's National Guard and he's flying helicopters down here. So that's why we're here while he's doing that. And then we'll bounce back.
Awesome. All right, beautiful. So I want to hear a little bit about your upbringing, like where your people come from, what's going on, how did you become who you are?
Sure. Oh, where do I begin? Born in. Well, so one of the things that I always share when I'm asked this question, because it feels very important, is I come from a big Irish, Italian, Catholic family, and I'm the oldest of 5 kids. Would have been 10. My mom actually miscarried 5 of us. She was willing to have a really big family. My dad was one of 10. My mom is one of 5 sisters. And, being the oldest and a Capricorn, I grew up very, very close to the earth, very, very close to nature. I've always had this propensity to be outside, to find aliveness and joy and creativity through nature. And, along the way, as most of us grew up in a household that had some dysfunction in terms of communication, in terms of emotional regulation and intimacy and whatnot. So I became very, very curious about human nature from a very early age. I feel like I had a sense of what was healthy and knew what wasn't, but didn't know how to shift the dynamics that were in my space. And so I became almost obsessed as a young adolescent with how do I how do I become a catalyst for compassion and competent communication, and do so in a way that brings people together and kind of bridges the gaps when people are in chaos, because there was a lot of chaos in my household growing up.
Yeah.
and part of that is, being the oldest, I had this caretaker energy. I wanted to change I was 4 years old. The first sibling under me was two. So most of us were 2 years apart, and I wanted to change the diapers. I wanted to put them to bed. I wanted to be all about the caretaking. And so that became a thread in my life, this desire to care for others, to nurture. And yeah, that's just when people come to me, that's what they're coming for quite often, is that nurturing
Mhm.
energy as well. So there's so many other things that I could say, but I'll stop there and see if you have any questions.
It sounds big.
It's very big.
Yeah. That's awesome that you have so many siblings.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did you
Yeah.
find yourself in a role of protectress very often? That's interesting that that question wants to come in.
Yes. So this has been both my medicine and like the thing that I've been working to move through as a wound. Is there were moments in my childhood where I was the protector, and I started embodying this archetype of peacemaker.
Mhm.
And call it a ripple effect of trauma, or call it part of my nature. I think there's a bit of like nurture and nature kind of interwoven here. But I
Mhm.
became very good at holding calm in the midst of chaos. So if other
Yeah.
people were unraveling and having a hard time around me, I would just find my center. And it became very helpful when I started working in healing capacities. I started working as a social worker in homes where children were at risk of hospitalization for dysregulation. So I would walk into these homes and I'd be reminded of my childhood, and I'd
Mm.
kind of step back into that, like I'm the most resourced in the room right now.
Yeah.
Where that's become a challenge is this part of me is very conflict averse. So she has a hard time sitting in conflict when the conflict is directed towards her. So if like
Mm.
I'm sitting with somebody and they're kind of being prickly and projecting and pointy
Yeah.
and that kind of energy, my nervous system shuts down, or parts of it do at least.
Mhm.
So very good at kind of holding that space for others. And then that's the shadow aspect of that peacemaker, is like the friction around taking up space and being controversial, or saying something that's going to ruffle people's feathers.
Mm. I resonate with that in all the ways. I think that for big nurturers, that's kind of power for the course
Yeah.
as well, because in order for you to bring that nurture, you need to know that something needs care, and therefore, yeah, there's a lot there.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's beautiful.
Mm,
I
mm.
love that. And so, as far as that was so beautifully expressed, actually. Thank you. I'm like, wait, there's more there. I'm like, um, your mother and father now, where are they? Where do they live? Are they your family? Are they all over?
So they're together. They still live in Rhode Island,
Okay,
and
so your family's in Rhode Island. All
my
right, got it.
family's in Rhode Island.
Mm.
Yeah, my brother, one of my brothers, just moved to North Carolina, but the rest of my siblings are currently in Rhode Island, and a lot of my family, cousins and whatnot, are still in Rhode Island. Some of them are scattered, but a lot are there.
Okay. So everything that has like pretty much came from your roots is really still at a certain level is still informing your work.
Yes, very
Yeah.
much so.
Which is so beautiful because it makes us reflect on we're purposely placed all the time, like everything, our souls incarnating into these families and growing us and
Mm-hmm.
developing us into these humans is so purposeful.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
I love that. Does your family understand your work?
They do. Now they do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not always. Not always.
Yeah.
I think in part, I, for most of my life, in the spirit of being the peacemaker, and just the medicine and the strength, is I have a way of bringing safety into a space just by
Mhm.
the presence and the energy that I hold. And I got a lot of praise for that. People would kind of come to me. I got a lot of connection. There's a lot of like tribal um, reinforcement around that. Where it's like,
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
And people would open up to me, and I'd feel intimacy with people because they just felt safe to just kind of unravel in front of
Yeah.
me. And so I was getting off on that in a way, very humanly so.
Yes.
However, I did a lot of editing of like my irreverent behavior, my sexual behavior, my quirky behavior, my anger, like all of that. I really just compartmentalized and often would kind of put away and out of the public eye for fear of losing intimacy, or at least the frequency of
Yeah.
intimacy in which I was getting with people. So when I first started really coming into embodiment work and learning about like my body's needs and what was sitting in my body, there was so much in my body and
Mhm.
it needed expression. And
Yeah.
so as I started expressing more viscerally, more sexually online, like my family was like, is
Oh.
Chrissy okay? Like, what's going on? What's going on with Chrissy?
Yeah.
And and then I had to do a lot of work around letting people be in their own process, and releasing
Oh,
my attachment to people understanding, and releasing my attachment to
yeah.
people jumping on the bandwagon I was on. And we can talk more about this, but what I do want to say, and kind of like from then to now, is that a lot of people in my family have either paid for or received my services and
Mm.
benefited from what I've been learning, what I've been doing, whether, consciously or unconsciously. I think also there's that element of energetic that you bring into a space where you're planting a seed in people's systems, and it's not your business to know how it's going to bloom.
Yeah.
So there's been a
So
shift, but it was hard in the beginning.
are you the main one in the family? Is there anybody else who's kind of been called to the healing arts? Or are you?
I'd say in like the holistic way that I approach it, I'm
Yeah.
probably the only one. But my father is a nurse practitioner. My
Oh,
mom is a physical therapist. They're both,
okay. So
well, my
it's,
mom's, yeah, like there's that element of
yeah.
nurture and care in my family for sure.
Mm, beautiful.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's such a rich bag of weaving because there's so much nuance around our shadows and our gifts and this continued redefinition. And also, you know, the releasing of how our families viewed us so that we can view ourselves in our own individuated, I want to say in our true origin, right? Like not the origin of the family origin, but the origin of like what we're coming to be
Yeah.
and come through. It's huge work.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
So big.
It's so big, and it can feel so kinky sometimes because we're in these human bodies that are, wired
Yeah.
to assimilate and adapt to the people around us, and want to do
Mhm.
that,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
get benefit from doing that
They
quite
do. Like,
often. So a big part of my journey has been also connecting with people like yourself, who are just like outside of my family of origin, but who reflect my essence back to me, and who can kind of
yeah.
hold a bigger space of curiosity and compassion and open-mindedness.
Mhm.
And that was what really fueled my capacity to find that confidence in myself, to continue anchoring into what that bigness,
Yeah.
that bigness inside.
It is. And it's so, it can seem really controversial at times too, because honoring our family of origin, like really being connected to roots and just belonging, right?
Yeah.
And then also just finding this deep satiated place where we actually belong to ourselves.
Yeah.
And that whole, I mean, it's a huge journey to even understand the depth. And I mean, we're in it, but we could still be scratching the surface because we don't know what else is available, right? Like it's
Yeah.
enormous.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
enormous. It's pretty cool though when we can see that our maturation is also like, as you said, the seeds are there in the family, like the reflections you can see and sense when there's healing happening within the rest of the unit
Yeah.
based on your own implementation of your willingness
Yeah.
to live in your own field of wisdom. It changes generations.
Yeah. And something else I want to see
Yeah.
too, it's just been coming up and I've been chewing on it, is
Too.
that rupture can create space for intimacy to root when there is intention to repair with love.
Mm.
And this is something I've been witnessing. I witnessed this and experienced this in my partnership, in client journeys, but also in relationship to my family members, and even just watching family members navigate their own intergenerational ruptures.
Yeah.
how disconnection, whether it leads to repair or intimacy with the person you disconnected from, can often, if we choose to navigate it this way, point us in the direction of deeper intimacy elsewhere, and make it more clear. I think sometimes when we become clear around what's not serving, what is serving also becomes clear, or what would serve becomes clear as well. So I just wanted to drop that in here, because I feel like it's up for a lot of people right now, this fear around rupturing things. But I want to see that when things rupture, if we're willing to repair, or we're willing to receive what does serve in the wake of a rupture, it can be the very wound that creates the rupture, can be the opening for intimacy to root.
I'm with you, and that was really eloquently spoken. So thank you. Yeah. It's like it creates a spaciousness, and it cuts through all of everything that was there before. It's like clouds parting.
Yeah.
So you do, even though it's uncomfortable to see truth and bear witness to some of the things that are opening, it's like it's unraveling a gift.
Yeah.
For sure. And I agree with you. I think where there is a fragrance or a seed of love and intent for that to bloom, like, especially if two people want it, right?
Absolutely.
But even if two people didn't, if you just wanted it for you, it would happen regardless.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I love that. I want to sit with that word rupture too. It's not a
Mhm.
word I use often.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hmm. Whew. It makes me think too, just leaning into some of the most, as we know, some of the most challenging times, like where things are broken up inside of us, breakups. I mean, this is where revolutionary change comes through the pathways of our life force energy and generates like new opportunities for us to trust, to come into self. It's a whole huge, it's not like let's create anarchy, but it's at the same time, there's a big blessing in everything. And reflecting on that, Chris, to the current world stage, let's lean into that for a second, right? So we're seeing everything kind of rupture.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it could highlight an opportunity for sure. Is there anything you want to lean into about that?
Mm. Wow, that's another big question. I'm gonna need to feel into that in terms of,
Yeah.
so just like, because there's so much that I could say here.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm just gonna speak from personal experience, like I said
Okay.
I would.
Perfect.
Well, one of the things that's up for me, and for some people that I've talked to, is a sense of overwhelm around the the bigness of the ruptures, or the bigness of corruption, of dysfunction, right? It's like we're
Yeah.
watching our family patterns play out on a global level, essentially. It's like, the
Yes.
family dynamics are everywhere.
They are. It's like victim consciousness in like full movie screen view everywhere.
Yeah, everywhere, everywhere, everywhere. And something I've been journeying is the recalibration of my inner optimist, because I've always been quite an optimistic person, and I think from the nature of the work that I did, I was trained, even, which kind of reinforced my essence, to look for strengths, to look for potential, to look for possibility, to look for cooperation, and places where dots could connect. It's just something I've always had an eye for.
Mm-hmm.
And then when everything happened with the pandemic and everybody was online more, I really found that my inner optimist was like, I don't know anything anymore. Like, do I feel optimistic? Do I see the strengths? Is it even worth it to see the strengths? It felt like just too big. And this is something that I shared before we jumped on, but to give context, and not to lean on a diagnosis, but I think it does speak to my nature. ADHD is something that I was diagnosed with as a child. One of the things that I do resonate with in terms of like the presentation is this propensity to be overwhelmed by like the big picture,
Yeah.
to be overwhelmed by the end goal, the end vision. And I'm not a very future focused person. Just
Mm.
never have been. I've always just been like, what's the next step? What's happening right now?
Yeah.
To my detriment sometimes. So part of my process with this unraveling, with this just global shifting energetically, was recognizing that that's where I'm at right now, and that my nervous system is overwhelmed by trying to make sense of everything that's happening. And for the first time ever, I think, I sat down and everything that made sense to me didn't make sense anymore in terms of my spirituality, in terms of my personal development stuff. I was just like, does this matter? And
Am I again? And what's going on?
I was
Yeah.
like, how do I share? Like, how do I speak into these spaces from this, you know, I've always been really good at the micro stuff. Like I'm really good one to one. I'm really good in small groups. I would never be president of the United States. Like I just, my brain is not wired for that. Like I probably have us like I tweak out immediately. And so part of that is knowing that, okay, I'm not designed to like be a big like global leader or CEO or somebody who's managing a lot of stuff. What I'm really good at though is holding presence and compassion and curiosity and problem solving from that micro space. And I really have been journeying around the conviction that that's enough. Even when people say it's not. Even when people say activism should look a very specific way, and if it doesn't, you don't care. Where I've been rooting in is like we all have very unique medicine and blueprints and wiring, and we need to honor that and trust that that is enough, that by doing our part within our zone of genius,
Mhm.
we can make the most change that we're here to make in this lifetime. And so that's one of the things that is feeling really fiery and important for me right now is like reminding people that even though things feel overwhelming, it's not our job to make sense of it all, to understand it all. Like there's no way we could ever understand all of it. Like nobody
Mhm.
understands all of it. We're not wired for that.
Yeah.
And but what do we understand? What has been a constant in our lives in terms of what we feel our gifts are, what we feel our medicine is, when we come alive, when are we most optimally functioning? And can we root in that
Mm.
as the revolution? Like that is the revolution, I personally believe. So that's what
Ah,
comes in for me when you talk about the global
thank
stage.
you. I have so much to say about this because I agree 100-fold, and I can see how easily um, we can distort that understanding because it is a primal truth. Like just be who you are, showing up as who you are is going to be the medicine for whatever that is. And there are people that are going to have huge audiences. And similar to you, I have been more grassroots, and I tend to draw in smaller crowds. And I'm not saying that I'm not. I mean, even this platform is like, and you have a podcast as well, just this opening of expression, right? Of like, oh, just as a tool of sharing our voices. But the idea that is currently transiting through the global world is get in a movement, like become part of a big mass group in order for you to feel like you are validated. It like really moves into the wounding of humanity to get them to be propelled forward so that they have a sense of purpose. And what I think you're eloquently saying is your sense of purpose comes in your everyday living, in the soil that you touch, the lives that you touch, and that is absolutely what is needed. And that we can feel safe to anchor into that. Like that is a true sense of resource.
Yeah. And I want to speak to the sense of unsafety sometimes that can come from holding what I hold as like more of the middle way.
Mm-hmm.
Because when I started unraveling in 2020, when I was like, what, how do I make sense of all of this? And nothing made sense. It was so unsettling to my nervous system.
Yeah.
And humans are wired to want to feel a sense of control. It helps us feel safe. And part of that is predictability. And I think that's what the lure of movements give is predictability or ideology, just some sense of understanding, meaning making, essentially, meaning
Yeah.
making. And where I have found myself is, you know, it's really important that meaning making comes from a process of asking really powerful questions of ourselves and others, not just listening to what other people have to say and then taking it on as ideology, but really running it through our own intuitive filters and learning how to ask nuanced questions that allow us to look at things from different perspectives. And that can feel dysregulating to the part of us that wants to be certain of things and to
Mm-hmm.
wants to have a very specific way of looking at the world and seeing the world. And another thing is, there's always going to be ideologies. There's always going to be people who believe very specific things, dogma, religion, all sorts of things. And I think it's also important that we learn to sit with people who have ideologies that we don't hold, or who are very certain of things, and be okay with holding uncertainty as
Mm-hmm.
well. Like while we're sitting with those people, being okay with holding uncertainty or a different perspective, and being open to learning more about their perspective, instead of kind of rooting in whatever feels true for us. Holding it lightly, but also staying curious and staying open. And that's one of the things that, if I know you're going to ask me more about legacy, but I'm just going to start talking about it now.
Yeah. Go, go,
you
go.
know for me, my legacy is immeasurable. It's in the way that I live my life. Wanting to leave this imprint of curiosity and compassion and aliveness, and modeling what it looks like in my day to day, to just be interested in other people. Like,
Mm-hmm.
hold interest, to listen, to see, instead of listen to respond, and to just give people the imprint of what it feels like to be seen. I feel like people are much less defensive and ideological when they just feel like fully seen and okay and wherever they're at. They're much more likely to be receptive to different perspectives when they're not on the defense. And I think that that's what we need right now, is the knowledge of how to soften other people's nervous systems and hold sovereignty within ourselves, so that we can have more productive conversations.
Mm. I love that. Everybody drip that in. That was good medicine. It's so true. It's so true. And that requires learning, like unlearning
Yeah.
and being adaptable. And I'm still working on that too. Like this is part, right, where we all are, right? So what I want so much is for people to feel free and safe to just express themselves and just be able to do that. I don't have to agree.
Yeah.
I'm also going to tell you that I don't agree because that's how I roll. But um, to hold that balance of openness, but to stay true to the self. I mean, it's such a powerful act of self-love and learning to cultivate, as you said, the nervous system, and cultivate the heart that knows itself, right? That relationship with learning how to really stay true to ourselves in the midst of a collective field or a family or a group of beings. So I feel like that is powerful leadership,
Mhm.
right? Where you can hold your own and still love and hold compassion for everybody else and their own personal experience, because we know as souls that we come in with our own programming, our own storyline, like everything as to how you and I got here, like we were bringing it back to the beginning, was divinely designed.
Mhm.
And we're all learning through these spaces. So also one thing that I work on is holding the allowance for folks to go through their own learning. I'm really working on that. I'm like,
Yeah,
Because it's part of evolution. Every single one of us, like if you talk to the Chrissy and the Jackie 2 years ago, we had a whole different song to sing, right? Like we've grown so much in just a minute.
totally, totally. Yeah. Oh, it's bringing up some stuff that I'm like, oh, I have no idea how I feel about all those things. Um,
Hey.
I'm recalling a time. I'm recalling a time where there was some rupture in a group space that I was holding, and somebody had said that as a leader I should be more neutral,
Mm,
and at the time, I felt I disagreed, or at least a part of me disagreed. And here's where like my multidimensionality kicks in.
I'm a fan.
A part of me is totally gets that, because I do believe that when I hold a neutral space in the face of something that I don't necessarily agree in, I'm much more likely to come from a place of curiosity,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm much more likely to either leave understanding that person better, even if I completely like I'm like nope, off the rails, um and or I'm able to like speak to this person in a way that softens their ideology.
Mm-hmm.
And that can be very hard to do. I think arguing with somebody is probably the worst way of softening an ideology. Like people root in when you resist their shit.
Yeah.
And so I think neutrality can be really powerful. That being said, on another note, there are parts of me that do feel very passionately about things and feel very convicted about things and want to express those passions and those convictions.
Mm,
And so I think it's a both and, as I'm processing this out loud.
yeah.
Yes, it's important to be neutral, but not always. That's not the rule for
Yeah.
leaders. And it's also important to express your passions and convictions. And I think a powerful leader knows
When
when
to do
it's
that.
time to,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And also, like,
Where
there's not always like a, yes, this is exactly the right way of doing it. Like, you know
this
what I
is the right thing to say and do now.
mean?
Yeah.
Neutrality is going to piss off people. And so is expression. Either way, whatever you do choose,
Yeah.
you're going to have people that are triggered by your choice.
Agreed. People will always be triggered,
Always.
right? And that deeper lesson of we can't control other people's nervous systems,
Right.
it, which is a thing.
Yeah. Even if you hold the most compassionate presence, there are still
Yeah.
going to be people who can't receive that or
Yeah.
don't receive it. Even a compassionate presence, I think, can be triggering for some people who are so used to drama
Yes.
and fighting that that's unpredictable to their nervous system. And just by nature of unpredictability, their survival
Mm,
brain's like, we don't
yeah.
want it. We don't know about that. We don't trust it.
Totally. And then there's the interpretation, right? Like everybody's field based on their own lens is reading whatever it is that they're geared up to read, whatever it is that they're like willing to be remotely open to. And I mean, you could be so clear, or you think you're so clear,
Yeah.
and no matter what, the response is always going to be from a lived distortion or experience from someone else's field.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. It's really interesting to continue to practice to be an effective communicator. And again, just stay true to the vein. Like as much as we're doing all this personal work and we're serving communities um, as healers and facilitating in all these ways, and like just coming back to like what is true now. What is true today in this moment, like how can my heart just show up to be with whatever is here and do my best.
Yeah. Absolutely. It's just a
Mm.
constant, um, I was going to say like a constant evaluation process.
Mhm.
And every time I say something, another part of me is like, yes, but
And
this.
and it's a dance. Yeah.
This is my life. Like this, like if you can imagine this, but like in 1,000 different ways in 2020, like that was me. I was like, yes, I believe that. Another part of me is like, but what about this perspective? And another part of me is like, but what about this perspective? And I'm like, whoa! Like to seeing all the perspectives and like, like yeah, getting all of them, like understanding all the perspectives, being like, yes, all of that makes sense from the lens that I'm standing in, you know, and then panning out and being like, what do I think?
Think.
Right? What do I feel? So I mean, I guess I always come back to the micro in that case. For me, it's always about coming back down to like the minutia of my
Yeah.
existence. What's going to regulate my nervous system?
Yeah.
And then from a very regulated nervous system, asking my intuition and just like trusting whatever is arising from that intuitive voice. And something I think can be cultivated if you're not familiar with that process. And at the end of the day, I lean on that. And that can be very countercultural too, to say intuitively, I got a no on doing this thing, or intuitively, I got a yes on doing that thing. And people are going to be like, what does that mean? I don't understand. That sounds stupid. Be like, I know it doesn't make any sense.
I am with you 100%. I'm reflecting on my friend Kathy she's a beautiful sister and elder, and we go for walks together. And so when she calls or when I call her, we make our plans. I'm like, all right, let me lean in to where we need to go. Like, where are we going today? And she's like, all right, you're asking your guides. I'm like, no, I'm just listening to where would be most most aligned for our feet to be with the earth today. And so she giggles about it, but like I like to listen to where I'm being placed, who I'm sharing my voice with, what it like down to what food I'm eating, right? Like if the wisdom and the higher knowledge is here all the time to purport our well-being, our safety, our care, then it's kind of a divine responsibility to listen to that infinite wise one and participate. You know, the whole world is like outstretched looking for an external authority, or to be saved, or to have an external God. And it's like, wow. I mean, the most countercultural thing we can do is realign with our own source and just be a good listener and develop a relationship with that.
Absolutely.
I love that. And that's revolutionary. Where even that's part of a legacy of women. And I feel like leaning into the word leaders, because when we think of leaders, we think of like, ooh la la, like leading movements. And I'm like, no, biatch. I mean, I mean, leading through the self, like being a leader in your own right. A mother is a leader in her household. You're a leader in your home. You're leading your own life, and you're listening and you're doing the best you can. And leading yourself means not being led by others.
Oh, and discerning what inner voices will allow to lead.
Yeah. And being responsible for that, right? It's like being responsible for your own house. And you and I know that it's a complex house. Like, to have access to all these voices, most folks have, like, there's an excavation process of rebirthing a safe space for all of these aspects of us to even join the conversation. Right. Like, it takes time for us to lay the tracks for that. Yeah. But now you're like the mother, the center, this nurturer of this entire house. And these voices feel alive to be able to impart their wisdom and their pieces of knowledge. And you, as as my teacher says, the Italian mama at the center of the table, you then get to discern and decide, like like the crossing guard at school, which way we're going and how we're getting there.
Yeah, I love the visual. I resonate.
Yeah.
Italian. That's gonna stick with me. My inner Italian, my nonna. Like, let's go.
Yes, let's go. Yeah.
I have a personality like trait or voice that I pull forward. Sometimes it's very nurturing, and sometimes it's like, Chrissy, what are we doing? No, 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 no. Like, I have to like literally like a small child running into traffic. If I notice I'm catastrophizing, I'm like, no, 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 come back to the sidewalk. Like, we don't have time to play in traffic right now.
Love that. That's so loving.
2 days ago, I was just like, whoa, we are spinning out, girlfriend. Like, come home.
Yeah. I love it. And no matter how much we're in the work, it's still something that we just practice.
Yeah.
Right. We don't master a nervous system. We just continue to deepen relationship.
Yeah.
With being able to hold our own.
Totally.
and meet more of our capacity. And oh, hello, more of you is here. Great. let's let's sort this out and and bring it into the mystery.
Absolutely. And it is a muscle, I believe.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
you start
Yeah.
walking, you start moving, stuff atrophies. I've had seasons of my life, days where I'm just like, tools, consciousness, awareness. What is that? Like, I just feel
Yeah.
so disconnected. The veil feels so foggy and thick.
Mhm. Yeah.
And sometimes that's because I've just neglected certain conversations with certain parts of me and practices that support me. So I never call it falling behind, even though a part of me definitely feels like I'm falling behind.
Yeah.
I just call it an invitation to revisit my practice and to deepen that muscle. Because it's like riding a bike. I don't people usually don't lose their capacity to ride a bike once they've learned. Like the muscle
Yeah.
memory is there. You don't
Yeah.
lose your capacity, but it does atrophy, and there is a bit of like a stumbling uh, game before you can
Yeah.
finesse at your center again. So I think it's normal to fall off track and need to do that like teeter tottering to get back on.
Totally agreed. And I mean, the amount of transmutation, I mean, we're literally like transforming constellations inside of our consciousness. For those of you, maybe that's too spirited language for some folks, but it means that you're like your the way you think, your mind frame, your heart, like everything softens and starts to break down so that you can create something brand new inside yourself. And so if you are creating a new structure inside, you don't know how to operate it. Like, so we have to then learn all over again, like all the time, of how to like sort of disengage. The personalities mature, right? And the more of our essence comes forward, and we want that essence to lead us and lead us into that new level of creation, to experience, with, as you refer to, the curiosity, to really embrace more of the mystery of who we are.
Yeah.
Because that defining who we are feels like such a limiting concept. Like I look at you on Facebook, like over the past few years, and just watching like the childlike innocence, bloom from the sexy mama on her roller skates. I mean, like there's been a lot of forms that have come through, and it's also pretty cool. It sounds a little creepy too. That we have access to one another, like that we can see and perceive one another, right? Like on social media.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's recorded. Like it's there. And so like, yeah, people are witnessing our journey. I have to say, I'll say, because I love honesty, and it's been it's been joyful to watch your journey. I don't like to watch a lot of people journey, and I have to like snooze for 30 days and send blessings and healing. But it's been really beautiful. And hence that's why you're here with me today. I felt that there is an authentic honesty within you, and that your spirit is very beautiful and has good intent. And so yeah, like heart for sure. And so it's beautiful to watch you. It's beautiful to be a part of you, watching you grow up.
Mm.
Like we're all just growing up.
Yeah. Thank you for that. I'm receiving that.
Yay. Yeah. Breathe into that. It's a lot.
Mm. Mm.
I'm listening now to like, oh, there's so many things so many places I could go with our conversation.
Yeah, I'm feeling that too.
Um, Hold on, the word home is coming. So let's just breathe into that. So when I lean into home, and I lean into like each one of us having our own specific medicine, right? And part of the what I acknowledge of you is this really this childlike innocence, like restoring this safe quality within folks.
Mm.
So they are like invited to come home to this receptive quality within themselves where they can be received.
Mhm.
And just this tenderness that comes from receiving one another. Like it's really not, the technology is love,
Mm.
right? Like the higher technology is just willingness and presence. Like the truth is, we can have a million different accreditations, right? And go to school and train in all the ways. But what you were born with is inherently what you're serving the people that you are communing with.
Mhm.
So it's so much less about who we have to become and more about being who we are.
Mm. Mhm. Yeah. Remembering
Yeah.
remembering that essence.
Hmm. And remembering, like bringing it into the body, right? All this consciousness, everything that you've been, like really bringing it into the form
Mhm. Mhm.
and living it, right? All those parts.
Yeah, the idea of becoming, I think, feels like a more of like a maturation piece of
Yeah.
those of what's already there. Of like you're seated already with everything you need to thrive and to heal and to support people, and it's just a matter. I have this metaphor of like becoming the gardener was the first
Oh,
course
I
I
love that.
so becoming the gardener, and yeah, just all about nurturing those seeds, nurturing those gifts, the qualities of presence, the flavor of presence. You're like,
Hmm.
what's your flavor of presence that's
Yeah.
most natural for you when fear is settled and
Mm.
in your body and there's peace. Like,
Mm.
what is that quality? For me, it's quirkiness, it's cheekiness, it's like it's a little irreverent, it's just weird and silly and funny, it's playful, right? It's just like
Yeah.
the coaster. And we all have our unique quality to our presence. And it all matters. It's all really important and it's all needed.
It
For
does. It all matters because we really matter.
us.
So one of the things that I feel like I've been leaning into with legacy is like not anyone to get this twisted. The legacy isn't like what you're doing. I mean, it can be. People are doing incredible work. I mean, so it's beautiful. And some people have like literally carved out pathways of like how they want to leave a generational impact and so forth. But it just down to the bones, like are the we've inherited so much and now we get to decide and embrace and embody who we are, and just we are the legacy. Like your grandmothers, I can imagine them being so like cheering you on and smiling and being in reverence of like the grape on the vine that you are now.
Mm.
And and how every heart we touch, how everything that we are is the legacy.
Yeah. Have you seen the movie Soul
I don't think I have. Oh wait, the cartoon.
cartoon?
Yeah, super cute.
Yeah. So that movie, I cry every single time I watch it.
Hmm.
Maybe two or three times now. Something about that movie really hits home with my essence. And for those of you who haven't seen it, I would recommend just watching it. But there's this character who's trying to find her purpose essentially, and everybody else, all the other souls are like finding their thing, their purpose in like art or music or basketball or something,
Yeah.
something that is more easily measured, more
Mhm.
tangible. And at the end, she realizes that her legacy, in essence, her purpose, the thing she comes to earth to do, or that brings her joy, is very intangible, but it's very connected to me, and I'm like, oh, she's me. It's so beautiful, and that's, I agree with you there in that, full transparency. When you asked me to talk about legacy, I chuckled because I was like, I don't care about legacy, at least not in the traditional form, like the
Yeah.
traditional way of like, I'm going to impact a million women, or I'm going to impact, tens of thousands of teenagers doing this specific thing. That's all well and good, I think. But
Mhm.
again, I'm not very like macro focused.
Mhm.
It's not in my design. Never has been. Maybe someday I'll wake up and it will be. I'm open to that happening, but right now it's just not. I'm very abstract, more artisty,
Mm.
right brainy, feely.
Yeah.
My legacy is presence and playful presence, and leaving that imprint on people, and trusting that everybody who meets me is getting exactly what they need from the interaction, and that I'm not going to know exactly how that's going to have a ripple effect, but just the fact that I exist. Like if I died right now, I know that my legacy's been met. Like I've
Yeah.
done the thing, I've done the thing by being myself, by
Mm.
coming into full aliveness in this lifetime. At least touching that and
Yeah.
practicing it. Obviously, I'm not like
Yeah.
walking around mastering that by any means, but being in the practice of it and
Yeah.
recommitting over and over and over again to the
Every
practice of it.
day. Yeah. I agree. I love that. Let's keep doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah. As though we have a choice. But yeah, we do actually have a choice. We have a choice whether or not we're going to commit.
Yeah. Some days I don't. Some days I'm like, nope.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then the next day I'm like, yeah, but I have to because
Because yeah, it unravels and it
when I
feels pretty. Yeah. So when you move back to Rhode Island, you're going to continue. So you're in private practice right now.
Yeah, so right now my primary offerings are high ticket coaching. I do have some breath work, like smaller memberships and things like that. But
Mhm.
yeah, right now it's private high ticket coaching. And when I moved to Rhode Island, I don't know if anybody in Rhode Island is going to see this, but if you're in my network, I'll share it and maybe you will. I am taking on a handful of clients via insurance. So I do have a social work license that I allowed to expire back 4 years ago when I started running my own business. I was
Yeah.
like, oh, I'm pivoting. I'm doing something, I'm going off the rails here. And I recently felt called to reinstate the license.
Oh,
So I think I'm
nice.
going to be, for people who just either can't afford the high ticket coaching, or um, well, I guess that'd be the only reason why you don't work with me,
Yeah.
right? unless
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
don't unless you're like, no, she's weird, I don't love her. Thanks.
True. Yeah.
So yeah, so I'm going to be doing that, and lots of other stuff on the horizon.
Yeah.
Many things, collaborations, a lot of cool stuff.
Beautiful. Yeah, it's interesting too. I guess I'll lean into this briefly. Like as far as collaborations, do you do a lot of collaborating or do you tend to be a woman who operates within her own domain?
More so the latter. If I'm collaborating, I'm usually coming into somebody's program or event, and I'm offering
Yeah.
breath work, or I'm offering a workshop.
Mhm.
So I come in, and I come in for a very specific amount of time and I leave. I haven't done any like co-course creation or anything like that.
Mhm.
No like big things.
Yeah.
But I like that. I like being able to come in offering a flavor, a slice of who I am, like leaving a wisdom piece in some other corner of the world.
Yeah.
There is a beautiful woman who I've known now for a while. Her name is Rosie. She's creating a cross pollination agency called Mrs. Flowers Media,
Mm.
and her intention is to work with creatives, directors, people in the acting art field, and bring a high caliber practitioners into that space for people in the industry who normally don't have access to this type of work: consciousness, spirituality,
Yeah.
nervous system regulation, just all of the nuanced stuff we do. And so she's building that out. I'm part of that cohort of facilitators that are offering, workshops or
Nice.
one-to-one services within that space, but that's still in its infancy right now.
Mhm.
So I'm planting seeds in other spaces too, with just offering my services in that way.
Yeah.
Definitely feels like what I'm here to do. A part of what I'm really good at is connecting people and doing collaboration. So
Yeah.
it's something I'm leaning more into in the coming years.
Yeah. I would say me too. At this point, I'm very discerning. And I think it's great to sprinkle, as you said, like, oh, let me just come slide in my piece there, slide in my piece there. I haven't yet, um, although I hope to in the future, right? To feel a deep, deep sense of resonance and trust that like something wants to be born with somebody else, because that could be really beautiful to co-parent
Yeah.
a body of work. But as of now, I think I still have needed to do my own maturing and also, yeah, just the times that we're in. I really do believe in being able to fully be sourced and nourished and really be clear and like in the zone with yourself
Mm.
before creating projects with others. Like there's a lot of books right now where folks are like, there's like 10 authors on a book.
Mm-hmm.
So I see a lot of really cool ways that people are making things come alive. And at this moment, I don't feel called to be a part of any of that. I feel like it's really important for us, some of us, to have a signature first and like implement our own sense of code before it can be brought into group dynamics.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Because there is still a thing. I'm just conscientious about groupthink
Mm.
and really just like how each one of us is here to anchor and implement what is true for us, so that it doesn't become one with another body of people. I'm
Mm-hmm.
like sovereignty, sovereignty now, yes,
Yeah.
in the energetics. So just community is a real and beautiful thing, if you don't have to forfeit your own integrity to live in it.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. I'll share, I'm going to shout out one of my dear friends who I feel does this really well. Her name's Jessie Mendez, not Mendez. She actually changed her last name. That was her married name, Jessie. I think she goes by Jessie Magic now. Jessie, what is your last name? What is your maiden name? I don't even think it matters. Jessie Magic. We'll call her.
Magic sounds like, yeah.
Just Eminem, but she does this really well. She's built out a community of a free Facebook group called Wild Essence, and her whole thing is sovereignty. And those are the types of people that I like to collaborate with and share space with, because, and yourself as well. I think when two very clearly sovereign beings come into a space, it's not so much about again teaching anything specific. It's about like holding space for curiosity for
Yeah,
people
yeah.
to delve into what their truth is, and whether or not it's in alignment with our truth, but allowing that to happen in a space and being able to hold space for nuance, I think, is so important when it comes to collaboration. So I see you, I feel you, I resonate with you so deeply, and I love that you know exactly where you're at with it right now.
Yeah, it is a journey. It is pretty exciting though, of like what's possible when we do co-create. Because I definitely know when you can self-generate your own power and then you come together with other divine women, divine leaders to co-create. I mean, it is magic sauce. It
Yeah,
amplifies and takes things to the whole next level.
absolutely.
So I think, I mean, obviously, even these podcasts, this is something that we're, you know, bringing through. It's a way to be able to do that. And yeah, I look forward to all of the opportunities in the future that feel like so fun.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah, where the work is just, it's more play and yeah, and more just genius, the genius that comes from like a little bit of play is, it's big.
I love that you keep nodding to that, because it's huge. Like, at the core of all of this, for me, and I'm saying it to and for myself right now, is humility,
Mm,
right? And not thinking less of myself, but thinking less about myself, right? And
yeah.
needing to be right all the time. And
Mm,
yeah, that's just a big piece for me that I've been journeying, is how can I humble myself while holding all the parts of myself that want and crave attention? How can I source that from within and then open myself up to love in deeper ways?
mm. I'm with you on that. So I wonder if that's how we ended up here together. It is a big time of revisiting humility. And oh, I'm gonna go here. All right. It's a big time to come home to humility and revisit what it means to be humble in a world that is flashing lights, big. I mean, we live in the on the what in America, so it is like big flashing lights, bigger, better, capitalismo. I mean, it's just even the industry that we are somehow connected to is there's a lot of distortions and there is so much there. So I'm just money consciousness and all these frameworks that are being that are blessings and also pollution for the airways,
Mm.
and just really leaning into wow, what is the truth now, like beyond the bells and whistles of where we want to be and how we want things to be. It's one thing to have like a something to plug into the navigation system of like a true soul desire, but really being honoring and truthful about what is true for us. And it brings us right down to humility, being humble, and respecting and being grateful for like all the little things that are us and that are around us.
Mhm, mhm.
So it's a big lesson again, another depth for me right now of that as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm wondering if maybe that is part of my medicine here too, is because in the spirit of meaning making, everybody's got their meanings to make around money consciousness,
Yeah,
marketing, all of these things. And that's great. I think,
it is
you've got
great.
your, again, your passion, your conviction. If that's what you're feeling like is
Mhm.
on line for you, then go for it. Talk about it. Call
Yeah.
those people in. Um, and I think for me, I'm more about like, I guess I'm here for people who want to feel more okay in mystery, to feel more
Mm,
okay marinating in mystery and
yeah.
feeling on purpose in mystery.
Mhm.
Like the paradox
That's
of feeling
beautiful.
on purpose in the mystery.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm.
And I'm learning that about myself as I'm saying that out loud right now. I'm like,
Same, same.
oh,
Yeah.
okay, I'm gonna sit with that one.
I love it. And that's how I love these talks because it generates more wisdom and pulls things out of us that we're like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
that is what I want.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
love that. Yeah. Oh, and PS, just to say, I'm a big fan as well of like the explosion of genius and feeling and all the things that people are growing through and sharing with the world. I mean, there's just so much. That's all. It's just with the internet, there's just so many gifts.
Yeah.
Like it's big, big. So coming back to that center is huge.
Yeah, we did talk about that right before popping on. We were like, I at least I was saying, like, in terms of consumption, for me, less is more right now. So I love seeing people's genius as well, and I know, as much as it can trigger me sometimes,
Mhm.
uh, because it's part of what I'm here to embrace
Yeah.
is the conviction of others. It's important
Mhm.
that I anchor into my naturalness, into a calm nervous system before consuming. And
Mhm.
so for me, like, I don't do a lot of scrolling unless I'm really checking out and I'm in an avoidance pattern. I don't look at a lot at what other people are up to. I have a very small number of people that I sometimes graze through, because I can find it can kind of convolute my inner voice at times.
Absolutely. It's so important to know, like, there are times when I just can't go on. It just doesn't feel like loving, safe, or or valuable to me. And then there's times where I'm like, oh, 15 minutes of this, I'm good. Like just really needing to stay sourced and plugged in to
Yeah.
my own voice, because we know what it's like when we're a little bit vulnerable, a
Yeah.
little bit wobbly, and to open ourselves up. I mean, it's a big world.
And I'm saying this again for myself. I feel like when I consume less of external things and I really root in my own
Mm,
space and I feel, solid here, then I can be more intentional with looking at challenging or controversial things because I don't feel like they're like the straw that's going to break my like overstimulated back.
yeah.
I feel like I have the capacity to have the harder conversations or to like think more abstractly when there's less information bouncing around in my head on a day-to-day basis. I've got enough stuff happening without all of the input of the world.
Yeah,
you know
totally. You've got
Once
all those voices to contend with.
what yeah, that needs to be organized first before I
Yes,
speak effectively with anybody else. So
agreed. Yeah, agreed. It's a powerful time for all of that. And for us as adults that we're learning to self-regulate. And as a mom, my mind always goes to the youth. And I'm like, oh, wow, big time for them.
Mhm.
Big time
Mhm.
of like how, yeah,
I can't imagine.
I can't imagine either.
I really can't.
It's like, holy shit, the grace of God being able to even like be here and functioning at like with all the input.
I mean, I had crises. I had the internet, as a teenager.
Mhm.
It wasn't what it is now, but like there was no TikTok, but I still there was still so much.
Wait, did you have the internet as a teenager? How old are you?
Yeah, I'm 30.
Okay. Yes, you did.
Did yeah. So I like instant messaging was like coming online for us as teenagers when I was 13, 14. You could search and everything, and MySpace, Facebook became a thing when I went
Mhm.
into college. But it wasn't at, the level of it was not where it's at now. But I was still overstimulated. You know what I'm saying? Like I was still overstimulated. And now I look on TikTok and I see what's happening with like the way teenagers are like, I can't even wrap my head around it. I don't know how
Yeah.
I'm so thankful that
I know. Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
was born when I was born.
Yeah.
Oh man.
That's beautiful. It's so much. I just want to say out loud, I don't know, I'm saying it from my heart. I don't know if it's appropriate or not, but the fact that you're 30 years old and you are coming with the wisdom and what you're embodying, it gives me a lot of joy and hope, because to carry it at 30, it's big.
Mm,
Like what's available now, it wasn't available necessarily when our ancestors were coming. Like we have access to so much. So
mhm,
thank you for utilizing it and doing your part,
mm.
because it's big. Because if you are sharing this now at 30, who knows what you're going to be like when you're 47? Like, look at me. I mean, and how many, it's big.
Yeah.
That was just a mom, sister, and me that's coming through and being like, wow. Yeah. And, and looking at so many of the young folks coming up in the generations, it's like, there's more access and they're here and they're showing up to do the work.
Yeah, and I do want to speak to that because I did the part of me that was like freaking out about it, just in thinking about being in their shoes right now, has also seen a lot of, anecdotally, teenagers who are opting out of these apps and who are opting
Yeah.
out of this consumption thing as well. And I want to speak to the intuitive part of us as humans. I felt very connected to it as a child. I know there are a lot of children and teenagers right now who still like who have an understanding, like there is I think a higher order here at play, like a higher wisdom that a lot of these kids are plugged into. A lot of them are getting sucked in, and you know for the ones that are not, um, they're going to be setting the way and trailblazing for their generation. And there's always going to be a group of people who, for whatever reason, have access to that voice and to have access to that as a resource and can set the example.
Yes. They are seated and it's happening. Yeah. And my prayer is that they all feel such strength and support around them for them to fulfill whatever that is for them. Yeah. And I hope to somehow be a part of doing that for the next generation. I mean, we're like laying groundwork. Yeah. It's like a passing of the baton.
For sure.
Which is beautiful.
And speaking real quick, I never understood my parents never had cell phones, like up until like 2 months ago. So I was always online. And like they just not engaged in social media at all. Like, I mean, I think my parents are on Facebook a little bit now, but like just like I've unsubscribed, and I never understood. I was always just like, you guys are so old. And now I'm like, oh my God, I am that person now to the younger generations. What? Yes. I understand the wisdom in less is more, in leaning back into yourself. Or my parents are very religious, so leaning back into your spirituality, leaning back into what matters to you, and not jumping on the circus.
Well, that segues us just so perfectly around legacy, like the wisdom of our people, like the wisdom, even though it can be highly dysfunctional, but there's still a trace of power and wisdom that comes through us. That's why we chose them. Right. Sure. So it's like that solidness of that, that rock. I mean, that's being imparted to you so that it's part of your steady, even if we don't realize it. Like they're part of our rock steady.
Yeah.
Right. Those roots are really, really powerful. And I know we agree on this, that it's really important for us to fly and be our own beings, but like acknowledging like the power of the choices we made to incarnate, specifically with these people. Just big up to the family, the parents, our families, because I mean, we are because of them.
For sure. And I'm just like, it's like, oh my gosh, I had a little insight where I just took a little strengths assessment for funsies.
Yeah.
Just to see what it would say. And like the top strength was an appreciation. I was addicted to personality quizzes, by the way, because I was like,
oh yeah.
Give me a box. Now I'm like, get your box away.
Yeah.
But what's my strength? Still have a little kink for that. The appreciation of beauty and excellence is my highest. Was like that came up on top. Appreciate out of everything, honesty, courage, blah 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 blah. Love, appreciation of beauty and excellence. And I come from a line of artists, and it like for me, like that's where I feel like I'm carrying on my lineage in that way. I'm carrying on my ancestry in that way. Like even amidst the dysfunction that's present, this appreciation of beauty. And I think part of my legacy, and I'm really having this insight in real time right now, is to appreciate beauty and excellence in a functional way, like in a way that's integrated and still leaves room for mess and not excellence. Yeah. To be okay with the messy middle, to be okay with like the pain and the discomfort of process, and to remember, to let the inner perfectionist lie, essentially. Mm-hmm. I think that's where I'm doing things a bit differently.
I love that. Yes. Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you for that.
Thank you for saying everything you've said that has sparked this gorgeous conversation.
Yay. So we could go on forever, but we can have you on again. So before we start to segue out, is there anything else that's coming up for you that you're like, oh, I want to tell the people something? Or you're like,
Wow, let's see. I think just what's coming up right now is like it's safe and purposeful to feel pleasure.
Mm, yeah, perfect. That's good medicine. Hmm. Yeah, thank you. All right, audience, we are going to find out right now how we can get in touch with Chrissy Marie. How can they reach you? What, any offerings, anything that you want to share with them about your biz?
Sure. So you can go to my website. Everything is under the Art of Aliveness. So artofaliveness.com. My podcast is The Art of Aliveness on Spotify and iTunes. Um, I have if people watch this between now and November, if I don't know when,
Yeah.
but I have a small group program starting called Take Yourself Less Seriously. And it'll be the second iteration of the group. It's a very intimate group, 3 people max, and we do a lot of energy clearing and communing, very similar to what you and I are doing right now, just like curious conversation around our relationship with play and patterns of contraction and expansion. So, rigidity around perfectionism and seriousness, and how do we soften into a more luscious and lighter lifestyle, and how do we dance with the shadow in a more playful way. I love bringing play to shadow work. So that's that's kind of my thing. Like that's probably like the thing people come to me
Nice.
for. It's like she brings play to the inner work, and people appreciate that. So that's on the agenda like soon. And then if you want to work with me one on one, I have a program called Grounded Joy. And that is either a 4 or an 8 month one-to-one journey with me where we do a lot of deep work around grounding into joy, integrating a sense of like embodiment and pleasure and levity into our space. So you can just reach out via my website or
Okay.
my email, which is hello@theartofaliveness.com.
Perfect. And I'll put those details below.
Thank you.
And yeah, thank you so much for your time. And for anybody who feels called to work with me, it's ourfemininelegacy.com. Uh, we have obviously the show and the podcast that's launching. And there seems to be a very deep focus on the primal return of the feminine and reclaiming the true divine feminine, truth, integrity, love, and melting the shadow aspects and healing these holy wombs, um, and all the facets of what that looks like. So feel free to check that out. And Chrissy, I'm just really grateful.
Me too. Me too. Thank you
Yeah,
for choosing me to come on.
you're welcome. Oh, I did choose you. That's so beautiful.
I feel so grateful and privileged and honored.
Yay. I'm so grateful too. I'm really honored too. So thank you. Thank you. And thanks to our guests for watching. I hope that you received some medicine from this session, a little bit of laughter, make a little love, get down tonight. Yeah, I hope it's been a source of a resource for you. And so that's it for now. Ciao for now, everybody. Until next time. Thank you so much.